Okay, well, we would like to start now with the final session for today because we still also want to close this plenary meeting more or less on time, around 4 or a little bit after 4. Well, thank you to all of you who are staying now till the end. I know it's been already a long day and what's probably a busy January in any case, but we did want to take advantage of setting up today's event, which brings all stakeholders from the energy sector together in order to also have a session which is about one of the key areas where energy transition needs to take place, and that's at local level. So that's why we've set up a session about local players in the energy markets and specifically focusing on the challenges and perspectives for cities and energy communities. And I'm really pleased to welcome here today 4 representatives of cities, city initiatives, and then energy communities who will share with you their experience on this topic. In terms of agenda for the session, we'll start by looking at cities. We'll have a couple of questions to the presenters. Then we move on to energy communities. At the end, there is chance for Q&A. I know that earlier on today, we already had some questions for the audience about energy communities, so maybe we come back to that topic. But without further ado, let me welcome Amy Radlberger, who is Senior EU Funding Officer from Wien Energie and also part of the City of Vienna utility. So Amy is also a member of working group, well, many working groups actually, which is a pleasure because Amy is one of the most active members in our sessions. So Amy, thank you a lot as well for volunteering to also present today the experience. Please, the floor is yours for your presentation.
Thank you, and also a thank you from my side for staying to the very end. We're going to give you the best session of the day, so it's going to be worth it. Just quick also thank you to GoiEner and also to PwC for organising the Investors Dialogue and to my colleagues in the working groups. The discussions are so fruitful. I think we're all learning each other. I'm a funding expert by trade, been working on funding for 20 years, but I'm learning a lot from actually the working groups where a lot of private financial investors are also there. And it's really, I think we're all learning from each other about the possibilities. So as has already been mentioned, I'm employed by Wien Energie, Austria's largest energy provider, but actually our competence centre for EU funding is providing support to the whole of the Wiener Stadtwerke Holding, which is Austria's largest utility infrastructure company. So for today's relevant daughter companies would be Wien Energie, Wiener Netze, which is a DSO, and perhaps also IMO, which is a building facilities management company, and they also work on smart buildings and nature-based solutions. As the city of Vienna has actually committed itself to 2 very good but challenging targets. So it's committed itself to being climate neutral by 2040, but also phasing out gas by 2040. There are 2 strategies also in English. I'd recommend you have a look at them on the phasing out gas strategy and also the smart cities framework. And I won't go through all the targets, but here are some of them that are listed, so have a look at them. And all of our projects that we're working on are working towards these goals. So we know that we are working to decarbonize Vienna. Municipal companies play a very important role in the energy transition, and I don't really think, sometimes I think that's not really recognized or people don't know about that. So actually we're implementing a lot of very innovative first of their kind projects, which I'm going to talk a little bit about later. We're also the implementers. So we have these targets and we, through our projects, implement them. So we play a crucial role in implementing projects which are going to forward the energy transition. And also we can feed back into regulatory processes about what works, what doesn't work. So we can be an advocate for change that will then see good coming to the city or making positive changes. Also, we talked earlier about public acceptance of energy projects, especially large-scale ones. And municipal companies they are interacting with citizens of cities every single day. So we have tram drivers, we have basically energy installateur, English now, installators that are kind of visiting and smart city and smart metering experts that are going to are basically installing the meters. So, and you see our service vehicles all over Vienna. So we're very visible, and we are that direct contact with the citizens of Vienna. And obviously, one of our major goals, well, our main aim is ensuring security of supply. So ensuring that that Vienna has energy all the time. But we do face a few challenges when we're deploying our large-scale energy projects. Projects often need time to be planned and implemented. So very often, when a funding call comes out, we have like 3 months to prepare a large-scale energy project, and this just isn't feasible. So, for example, geothermal projects, they need a good 3, 4, 5 years maybe to actually plan them. So we can't just apply for funding. Saying that, sometimes it is the case that because we're bound by public procurement rules, when we're ready to go, we're kind of ready to go. So sometimes we need funding to be provided, well, we need to get funding quite quickly to implement a project. So there seems to be a bit mismatch sometimes between the calls. But saying that, these reoccurring topics that we see, for example, with LIFE or the Innovation Fund, really help us to plan what projects might be able to obtain financing. And the multi-annual work programs, for example, of Horizon Europe, are super helpful for us to know what topics are coming out in 2 years' time, because then we can plan properly for them, and we need that time. There's also a lack of space in urban areas, so we have to be quite creative with our projects, and you'll see one of them in a minute. So we have to kind of think where we could actually install our energy projects or energy demonstrators. Geothermal energy will play a key role in the decarbonisation of Vienna, and we're increasing our efforts in this regard, and we're starting our first deep geothermal energy drilling shortly. But this comes with large upfront capital costs, and basically this is quite difficult to obtain funding for. Also, we mentioned it first thing this morning as well, so don't forget, with lots of new and exciting innovative projects, the power stations also have to be upgraded to take them, and also the grids have to be upgraded then to be able to run them. And I think this might have been overlooked by some, and therefore we need to make sure that any new projects need to go hand in hand with the grid upgrading or the upgrading of the power plants. And then financing, the hot topic of the day. So in terms of eligibility, we kind of sit between lots of different eligibility criteria and funding rates. So we are considered a large company, which means we get quite low funding rates. For example, national funding, 15%, and from Horizon Europe, 70%. But we belong to the city of Vienna. So we're kind of a bit different, so to say. In addition to that, some of the municipal companies can't obtain private financing. They're simply not allowed. It's in their contracts. So we know, obviously, that the energy transition is going to require private financing, but we need to make sure there are also grants available for those who cannot obtain private financing, and this is very often municipal companies. Also, state aid rules, de minimis funding, as the daughter companies are part of a holding across all of our companies. So this is Vienna's public transport provider, the largest energy provider. We have, I think, all of us can only obtain de minimis funding over 2 years of something like, was 200,000, is it 300,000 yet now with the new legal text? And also, we've said it very often, DSOs in a regulated environment is extremely difficult for them to obtain extra financing, and when they do, again, the small funding rates are it's quite difficult to encourage already very, very motivated and people who are investing their resources in projects to then go on to apply for funding projects. One of our first successful projects from the Competence Centre, we've been running since the beginning of 2022, was the Wien Energie Geopost project. It was funded by the EIB's ELENA program. If you don't know the ELENA program and you're from a city, I can highly recommend it. It is literally the lighthouse, I think, for EU funding. Application process is extremely easy. You're supported really well by the EIB. It funds the preparation costs of a larger investment scheme, so not the investment itself, but allowing you to prepare for it. We bundled two projects together, the deep geothermal energy plant, which I already mentioned, and a thermal storage project, which is a first-of-its-kind thermal energy storage project, really a first-of-its-kind in the world. And this will be built in Vienna, and you can actually use the surface. So here's the link to the project fact sheet, so I recommend that you also have a look at that. And I just wanted to end because I get the feeling that people don't think of municipal companies as being extremely innovative, but I want to really make that point that we are, and we are good test beds for testing out already demonstrated technologies and for rolling them out. So typically from TRL5. So a couple of projects that I wanted to mention. We used next generation EU funding through our recovery and resilience plan to green our fleets. So they're being transformed into to run on, they will be then electric fleets, not only our own internal fleets, but also obviously the public buses in Vienna. We performed in autumn last year a world first hydrogen pilot test in a thermal heating plant where we performed an admixture of 15% green hydrogen. You can see that, it's all over the news. So this was a partnership, and this was also a world first. We also have our own strategic corporate investment company working with innovative SMEs and forming long-term partnerships with startups and providing also investment in them. So I'd encourage you to take a look. This is just a snapshot of our innovative projects that we undertake, and we use national and EU funding very often to finance them. The hydrogen pilot test was also nationally funded. So yeah, and if you have any questions, please don't hesitate. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. And now I would like to invite to the stage Ruslan Zhechkov. Hold on, even though it's a Bulgarian name, I somehow managed to mess it up. Sorry about that. But Ruslan is an energy and climate finance expert who is going to present to us today the Smart Cities Marketplace. And Ruslan brings with him a lot of experience, including from amongst else the Covenant of Mayors initiative. So he sure knows what he's talking about when it comes to facilitating access to finance for cities. With the green button should be going forward.
Green button.
Oh, hold on.
You told me I have to aim. I think I'm aiming.
Big green button.
The big green, okay.
There we go. Thank you, Ruslan. The stage is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure being here in front of you. I'm sorry the others are not here, but we can understand. We've all been organizers of events, so we know how it is in the afternoons of such interesting events. I'm representing here the Smart Cities Marketplace, which is a DG Energy initiative for supporting cities. Small and medium cities, rather small, like between 50 and 100,000 euros. It is. Sorry, I will first speak on the slide. I'll start with some barriers to funding. Amy already mentioned these barriers from the point of view of a big city like Vienna, but things get even more complicated when we speak of smaller cities. We, of course, have the problem of lack of funding for energy projects. We have the problem of very small teams, of lack of capacity. We have a problem of disconnection between the strategies of the cities and their actions, or a fragmentation of responsibilities. There are other problems that you're certainly aware of, but this is all there, and it should be taken into consideration when thinking of smaller cities. Smart Cities Marketplace is in the middle of this landscape. It's almost like a puzzle. These are all the available technical support and advisory support mechanisms of the European Union in the field of smart cities. I have to make sure that Smart Cities Marketplace is not only about energy. It also includes topics like sustainable transport, climate change adaptation, so other topics as well, including the energy topic. So you see there are initiatives. I will not read them all. It will take all the 7 minutes, but it is to add to the problems that I mentioned on the previous slide. It adds one more problem, which is a little bit the confusing landscape of initiatives. So there are too many of them in a way, which is great. Better have too many than too few, but still cities with small capacities, with low capacities could be confused. So shifting towards a situation of like a one-stop shop for technical support, matchmaking services, capacity building services would be great. All of these initiatives, they are complementary and they work together, obviously, but if you have a couple of people dealing with the topic in the city, it is confusing. What are the key components for the Smart Cities Marketplace? So it could be a kind of a pitch for those of you who are representing cities or investors. The main goal of the Smart Cities Marketplace is to put together, I mean, I'm starting for the fourth, but a matchmaking process for enabling investment, putting together a city on one side, interested in moving its project to a higher maturity level, and investors. It is also all of the other things like a repository of projects, a hub for solutions also, and a forum for knowledge exchange. So feel free to reach out to us if you're interested in any of those services. We are also working and kind of building and increasing a network of investors which are a part of the landscape, which participates in events and try to kind of work with the cities. The focus of the Smart Cities Marketplace is private investors, not only, of course, but it was the primary idea to go with more private funding than the other type of subsidies from the European Union, which is also a kind of a problem, because you can imagine that from the point of view of a small city, the availability of so many so many grants is a turn off for working with the private sector. So sometimes cities, I'm saying this based on experience, based on surveys, interviews, etc. Sometimes cities prefer to wait for a number of years if they're not bound by some legal obligations, rather than wait for a grant, rather than go with the private sector now. But we are trying to kind of to break this circle, so to say, through discussions, capacity building, etc. So you can see the type of support. I wouldn't like to read all of that, but it's the acceleration of the implementation of projects. That's the overall goal. We have this shape shaping the deal. So we're kind of onboarding cities at different stages of the maturity of their projects, and we work with the cities depending on their needs to advance the maturity of their projects. So if they're very mature, so obviously the goal is to put them together in touch with financial institutions. If the maturity of the project is relatively low, then we offer an one-on-one consultancy for improving the maturity of the project, structuring the project, choosing the best business model, etc., etc. And of course, benefit from the free exchange of ideas, links with the financial institutions, their problems, their offers, etc., etc. Sorry, there are two green bottles, two green buttons. I mean, a little bit more on the services. I already said we're kind of organizing matchmaking events, financial master classes, usually online, webinars on precise topics. Peer-to-peer exchanges is a nice service. Sending one city which financed and implemented an interesting project to another one. So you see a set of services that could be of interest to the cities. Who can? We're trying to. We have lots of cities that we're working with, but we are trying to onboard more cities to benefit from the initiatives. So we're looking for businesses, SMEs, project developers. We mainly looking for cities and city-led consortia from the European member states, but also financial institutions could get in touch with us to be added to the repository of financial companies we work with. Okay, I will not talk about that. It's a particular example of a city in Poland which we helped with the hydrogen project, but it is one of many. So that's it from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruslan. Feel free to take back your place. I do have one follow-up question for you and Amy before we move on to the next topic, which would be on energy communities. But sticking to cities for a minute, I mean, I understand one of the main challenges in terms of helping cities to access the funding instruments which are already available. One of the main challenges is around capacity, whether it's knowledge, whether it's available human resources which can take this forward. So Amy, indeed, as Ruslan said, you are representing nevertheless one of the largest cities in Europe. Nevertheless, I imagine that you also have experienced similar challenges. Any reflections on this? Any tips, any advice on how to bridge that critical gap? We see that from Smart Cities Marketplace, there are a lot of resources that can help, but in your experience, what has helped the most?
Well, our competence centre, I think, really started something. When the competence centre was conceived, we didn't know how many projects would come forward, and the response has been monumental. And we are now we've employed 2 members of staff, and we have a massive list of projects that will be submitted. So my recommendation is really to have in-house experts that help with the sourcing the funding and assisting with the application process, but also ideally having a team perhaps of project managers also, because there is this common perception, I think, despite the facts in Europe that people say, okay, EU funding is so difficult and we'll never get it. There's all these, I'm always hearing, I heard that. And it's just often not the case. So having in-house experts to support with applications and with the implementation process, I think, is crucial. And I think that that all cities should have one. We obviously have us for the utilities. City of Vienna has Euro Vienna, which support with their applications. And I think this is crucial. Second thing is to start small. So the Elena program of the EIB was perfect for Wien Energie. It was one of our first ever, we have had EU projects in the past, but nothing of this scale. And it was a really nice, easy application process to start with. And now we feel ready to apply for larger scale funding, perhaps a bit more complicated funding schemes. But start small at the beginning, because you don't want to be burned by your experiences at first. And just build up competencies and build internal competencies up. One other thing, sorry, when I think of it, it's so important, and this is why your work is really crucial, to show cities and municipal companies what can be done with funding. That's one mistake, actually, that I made at the very beginning. I never provided project examples, and I'd just present on the funding. And then people could see an idea of what could be funded. So now we try to ensure that we always give a relevant project example, and if possible, we bring a project manager who has acquired funding into a meeting to describe the application process and the positives, and obviously their lessons learned, negatives as well. Because people will trust what you say if they know what exactly can be done, and it's not some sort of mythical funding scheme, but they want to know exactly what can be funded, and they are more likely to listen to people that have actually, in their position, that have actually done it before.
And Ruslan, from your point of view,
Thank you.
what has also, because you mentioned there are quite a number of different activities that you provide under the marketplace, maybe you can also reflect on which you have found to be most successful in terms of generating that demand, in terms of creating that capacity which can unlock the investment opportunities.
I would say everything is, I mean, I wouldn't single out some of them. Peer-to-peer is very, very interesting, because it goes with seeing something, that getting it from somebody who has implemented a very similar project to yours. So not only from Smart Cities Marketplace, but this instrument of peer-to-peer learning is excellent, I think, because you can ask really the right questions. I also think that all the great initiatives of the European Commission, European Union, are a little bit underutilized from what I see. There is excellent stuff out there. Nothing is an answer, a kind of a definitive answer to your problem, but there are so many resources, and we've seen for many initiatives, let's say, relatively not that high rate of interest, because of the problem with lack of capacity, with lack of over-solicitation of cities. Very often there are, one or two persons in a small city. They cannot be everywhere. They cannot benefit from everywhere, from all the webinars, from all the trainings, etc., which is a problem in a way. Problem of having too many things. Continuing on with all instruments, trying to really trigger the interest of the cities to providing them this added value. I mean, thinking from the point of view of added value to the city, not from the point of view of, let's say, bureaucratic, okay, we are proposing this and this, but what brings value to the city is a very good question to start with.
All right, well, thank you both for these reflections. I suggest we move to the second part of the session, which would be on energy communities. And here I would like to start by welcoming Santiago Ochoa de Eribe, who is director at GoiEner. And we've been very happy to have GoiEner involved in several of the working group meetings as part of the Investors Dialogue on Energy, sharing their experience with obtaining repayable financing for energy communities. So, Santiago, you have the floor to share a bit about the experience of GoiEner.
Okay. Thank you, first of all, to the European Commission for the opportunity and to the coordinators. Maybe the case we are going to present could be viewed as a tiny one regarding all of the messages that we have received this day. We as a cooperative, we are members of RESCoopEU, and behind RESCoop, there are more than 1 million citizens across Europe, all in cooperatives like GoiEner. So the examples maybe could be tiny ones, but it could reflect what should be for us the future. GoiEner is a non-for-profit group of cooperatives and association. We are a grassroots organizations. We started in 2012, and we started as an energy retailer, GoiEner RESCoopEU. And after that, we created NafarCoop, that is a cooperative that invests in renewable energy projects, and it gives assessment, promotes purchase, renewable energy installations, and so on. Since 2018, we have raised more than 1.5 million euros, only among 1,400 members. Okay, nowadays we are not going for loans to external companies, and for us it's important because it gives us nowadays a lot of independence regarding projects, regarding the decision-making issues. But we are now exploring all of these new ways of financing projects. And last but not less important, the association is the one where we are fostering, we are boosting energy communities across our region. We are located in the Basque Country, and Navarre is in the north of Spain. As you can see, we are more than 18,000 members in general, but we have a 2.8 million scope of population in order to reach and to deploy all of our solutions. Regarding energy communities, the last 3 years, we have our achievements are the ones that you could appreciate in the presentation. More than 20 renewable energy communities have been created following the European Union directives 2018 and 2019 regarding renewable energy communities and citizen energy communities. But mainly the type of energy community that we are developing is the first one, renewable energy community. They are mainly cooperatives. There are long processes because what we want is to have people behind these communities. It's not only about projects. Nowadays we have gathered more than 1,000 members. The municipalities are getting involved into these projects. And nowadays we have, we know they, because we are not part of these energy communities, we are helping them. They have raised 300,000 euros from their members in order to develop the first projects. And we are fostering and we are helping establishing the first the people that they are being employed by the energy communities. We have been involved, and we are involved nowadays in different European projects, H2020 and LIFE projects. And one of them, ACE project, my colleague Stan from RESCoop will address you after my presentation. But the other projects, they are more very focused on how to deploy energy, renewable energy projects and services for energy communities. Because we have the knowledge, we are focused on transferring the knowledge for the energy communities. And here is the main thing, the main issue regarding our current theme, the financing. There are a lot of barriers, challenges, and solutions regarding the deploying of energy communities. But when we come to the financing issues, the main issue that we are addressing is that we cannot gather money, we cannot go to the financial institutions because there is no past, there is no history for these energy communities. They are startups, okay? So how can we, or how can they go for a loan if you don't have any kind of history, okay? So It's very interesting because after having different conversations with financial institutions about how to raise money for this kind of entities, the energy communities, the main difficulty that all of them put into the table, on the table, is who are behind these energy communities. Are there people? It's for real, or are they only projects? Okay, so that's a very interesting question because they are not addressing difficulties regarding the solvency of if they are solvent or no regarding financial issues. So it's very important to create a strong community behind these projects. Because we have been promoting 20 energy communities, more than 21, what we have realized is that it's very important to apply for grants and use that grants like a warranty for future loans with the financial entities. It's very important the implication, the commitment of the local municipality, because they can put money as capital. Okay, it's not a loan, it's not a grant, it's capital, because they can receive back that money a few years from now. And it's very important to establish relationships with another RESCops, like GoiEner in this case, because, for example, one of the things that we could provide is to establish, because we are a retailer, we can offer a PPA with the energy community. The energy community develops a renewable energy project, and maybe they don't know or they need to have some kind of warranty regarding the price that they are going to receive. And that same kind of warranty is the warranty that the financial entity is going to need in order to say, okay, I could go for a loan for you. The problem is another size. The size is another problem, excuse me. So it's very important why cooperatives as GoiEner could provide help, assessment, in order to establish or go for that what we have heard the whole day for the risking the financial issue. That's one of the things that we do with from our another cooperative, from FARCOP. We have this portfolio concept, so we try to diversify among different technologies and different type of projects. Finally, from our experience, the role of municipalities is key for the energy communities at this ground level. Why? Because the municipalities, we are not talking about 100,000 municipalities or cities. Our experience goes for 5,000 people, municipalities, and so on. They lack resources. For example, in order, as you have said before, capacity. Okay, they lack resources, human resources, but the energy community could provide to the municipality in order to develop all these projects. So here we can go for different type of synergies. The most important ones are regarding, for example, transfers of roofs, of spaces, of municipal ownership to the energy community, or as I mentioned before, the capital that the municipality could put into the energy community for a period of time. Meanwhile, the energy community is growing and is becoming stronger. Okay, and the synergies that could provide developing, designing different kind of services for the whole municipality. So the energy community could provide this type of services, and the municipality could match different targets, for example, regarding decarbonization in general. Okay, and that's all. Thank you, everyone.
Santiago, many thanks for sharing this experience. I suggest we proceed to the next presentation by Stanislas.
I have a question to Santiago.
We have a Q&A session at the end. If you can keep it for 10 more minutes, we'll get to that. So Stanislas d'Herbemont is going to tell us about RESCoopEU and also the work they're doing of providing access to finance for energy communities. Stanislas, over to you.
Thank you very much. And I'm glad to see that people are excited about the topics of energy communities. Thank you very much for having us today to talk about that topic, energy communities. So my presentation today is going to be focusing mostly on the experience of the ACE project. ACE stands for Access to Capital for Community Energy. And that project is meant to be looking at the mechanisms that can be used to support the financing of energy communities at specific organizations. My name is Stanislas, and I work as a development manager for RESCoopEU, which is the Federation of Citizen Energy Cooperatives. Our job is to support people like Santiago, but many more across Europe. We represent about 1,500 members, which together bring about 1,200,000 citizens across Europe. Together, we are tackling many different activities, from production to supply to electrical mobility. We have members doing grid management. We have members doing building renovation, tackling energy poverty. So what energy communities do is far and wide. And I want us to agree today, right now, that this is not going to be about collective self-consumption or about microgrids, but it's about a governance concept which is bringing back the energy sector into the hands of citizens and putting it at the center of the conversation. This is particularly important because when looking at the barriers to financing, we have to understand as well that energy communities are financed in a different model compared to typical type of businesses across Europe. So why would we finance energy communities? Well, first, because they are providing for a significant amount of co-benefits like energy justice, like energy efficiency, like penetration of renewables and acceptability of renewable installations. So this is really what energy communities are best known for and are good at delivering, really recreating this local territorial partnership that is going to allow for the development of strong energy transition, democratic at the local level. The ACE project, like I said, is looking at how can we scale the number of energy communities across Europe, how can we develop them faster by developing specific financing schemes that are looking at specifically providing and bridging that gap between the needs of energy communities in terms of equity and debt and collective action models that are allowing for financing to be spread more efficiently. We are looking at specifically 2 replication countries, France and the Netherlands, who have currently working schemes for energy communities, and looking at replicating that across 5 others, so specifically Spain with GoiEner, but also Germany, Belgium, Croatia, and Romania. Obviously, each country is different, and that is what makes this project interesting, is because it really allows us to dive deep into what are the current barriers in the financing market, and how can we concretely group together, make one step in the direction of financiers while we are asking investors to make one step in our direction. So, concretely, what are the barriers to financing for energy communities? I apologize for a lot of text, but I'll give you the gist of it. The first thing is there is a lack of specific financial offer. Many of the financial tools that are being provided to energy communities are usually not fit for purpose. They are usually targeting either private businesses and therefore valuing the financial performance of the investment versus the co-benefits that energy communities can bring to the table. Or they are targeting individual prosumers, for instance, mistaking energy communities for an activity such as energy sharing, for example. I think what is important here to realize is that energy communities, once again, develop projects in a different way, look for a different target, and therefore need to have dedicated financial tools attached to them. The second part is the difficulty of upfront financing, or from capital specifically. And there, the main point is that we're talking about organizations that are largely based on volunteers, largely based on right people that are excited about the energy transition, but not always professional of the sector. And therefore, it's very difficult to raise the upfront capital to actually get the project on the way. Santi talked about the fact that it's often difficult when you don't have a track record to secure a loan, for example. It's even more difficult when your organization is built with volunteers and that you are looking at a project that is very locally relevant. The high threshold portfolio is very present, especially in public financing tools, such as we talked about the EIB. It's accurate that Elena is a wonderful tool. However, Elena has a threshold of 30 million euros for any type of project to be financed. If you are a local energy community, 30 million euros sounds like an absolute dream. We talked to the EBRD earlier today. Their threshold is around 10 million euros. That's also a pipe dream for most energy communities across Europe. And so therefore, we understand very clearly that, unfortunately, the type of support that is afforded is not really able to drive to the local level and be provided to, those smaller organizations. Regulatory barriers and limitations. There's two types of barriers. The typical type of transposition process that has been difficult across Europe. If you want to take a look at a status quo, the Energy Communities Repository has published a number of country fishes that is looking at the transposition process in many countries of Europe. The reality is that it's still underway, and so therefore that slows down the process of scaling for energy communities. There are other types of barriers, such as, in certain cases, very negative regulations around cooperatives. We can think of the cooperative regulations in Croatia, to point out an example, that is making it extremely difficult for members of cooperatives or members of energy communities to simply finance their projects because they are asked to put their own safety at risk, really denying the goal of actually creating a project society. And then finally, and maybe I would say the easiest, I don't know if it's the easiest, but at least the one that maybe we can solve together today, the lack of knowledge of financing institutions. I think there's a lot of misconceptions about what energy communities are, what they are here to represent, what they're here to perform. And so it's important as well for the European community to come together and clarify what are the policy goals behind the growth of energy communities. And therefore, this will create as well an incentive for private investors to understand what energy communities can provide to their investment portfolio and what type of other benefits they can bring to the table. So enough with the doom and gloom, and let's take a look at some solutions as well. The first one is take a holistic approach when thinking about energy communities, and specifically when thinking about valuing, assessing community investment. It's very important to understand not only community investment in terms of the pure financial performance, but also in terms of the significant other co-benefits that can be brought forward by community energy projects. In that sense, the new sustainable finance package is really supporting that approach in terms of clarifying the type of benefits that investors can have by partnering up with energy communities. Of course, always provided that there is a certain respect on the democratic governance process that is always interesting or always important in the construction of energy communities. Second, energy communities network have a key role to play. I think Santiago gave you the perfect example of what energy communities network can bring to the table in terms of really supporting that link to local initiatives. And that is clarifying expectations from both sides, but also allowing at the same time for local initiative to reach certain level of criteria that are important for financial institutions, while at the same time having financial institutions, go into a market that is maybe unknown. The third part is dedicated tools and support programs. We see that happening across Europe, and there I have to point out a program in Emilia-Romagna in Italy that is specifically adding a number of criteria linked to citizen development, community participation into their cohesion program. That was a great success. It allowed for a number of energy communities to be financed at the local level in the region. And the final part is the creation of local partnership and expectations. And here, there are a number of key pieces of work that have been done in the impact of energy communities projects at the local level, creating local economic value, creating social impact on the local level. And there, it's very important for both community developers, private developers, and public institutions to work in a concerted way to really have a clear understanding of what is the purpose of a local project. There is a significant amount of work that was performed by Énergie Partagée in France on co-development 2 and co-development 3, which is 2 partners co-development and 3 partners with public, private, and community development. It was done at the local level, and that is really giving a blueprint in terms of what could be done if we all come around the table. I'll finish with one last thing, and I'll go very quickly, probably too quickly on this, but RESCoopEU, with the support of CE Bankwatch and CAN Europe, has been performing an overview of cohesion and regional development funds, modernization funds, RRF, and the REPowerEU chapters, looking at what is the compatibility of those programs with energy communities, and specifically how energy communities will be able to access those funds. As you can see, there are some good news and some less good news. Overall, it's quite interesting to see that despite the fact that many member states are making an effort in the right direction, and that some programs, more programs, especially after the new REPowerEU chapters, are targeting energy communities, it's a clear point that at the moment, public finance is not going to be stepping up to the plate, and that we need private investors to also take their share and understand the value, but also the benefits of partnering up with energy communities. And I'll stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stanislas. Many thanks. If we can have the microphone over here, I think we'll go directly to questions from the audience in the interest of time. So we have time for, I think, about 2 questions or so. Let's start over here and then one more in the back. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Francesco. I work for Octopus Energy Generation, and I have a question to Santiago. It was very interesting to see the real case you presented, where 1,000 people invested 300 euros each to fund the construction of 250 kilowatt PV. What's the benefit to these 1,000 people by participating in this program? On top, and benefit I refer not to idealistic and soft benefit in terms of doing the right things and feeling doing a little step for the right reason, but tangible benefit in terms of economics or other advantages.
Yeah.
Yes. When we started developing or trying to develop the first energy communities, we captured the principles of the European directives, and they say the main objectives on our energy community is to carry benefits at 3 levels: economical, social, and environmental. Okay, so it's not one stronger than the other ones. All of them have the same weight. So it's very important when we are developing the energy communities, before we create them, we help creating them, we establish a business plan, for example. And into that business plan is, okay, what about the money that we are investing in PV panels or never mind, we could put into motion an energy office in order to give assessment to our neighbors and so on. So that should be some kind of profitable for the energy community. In general, from a technological point of view, the easiest type of project is the self-consumption, shared self-consumption based on PV panels, because it gives to the people that they are putting money into that installations, they can see that their energy bills reduce, the total amount of money that they are paying for that. So through the savings, they are recovering somehow the investment that they made. But this is not proper investment, because they are putting equity into the cooperative in this case. And for us, one of the concepts I didn't mention before is that we try to establish what it's called, I think, revolving equity or revolving capital. Okay, the same amount of capital should try to develop more and more projects during the time. So, of course, it should have some kind of economic benefit for the people that they are investing this type of money, but they see it's not only investing, they are owning something, and it gives them back this kind of benefits. So it's true that it's quite difficult in the beginning to put all the people at the same level, asking for them the same amount of money, because the reality of the people it's very different. So that's one of the reasons why, for example, the local municipality or small and medium enterprises, they get involved. They help putting the first equity into the cooperatives in order to boost the energy community. And after that, and the people, the citizens that are involved, they put money too, but maybe not all the money they should need for the first investment.
Thank you so for the explanation, Santiago. We had one more question in the back. If my colleague Giovanni could bring the microphone.
Thank you. Hello, I am Ludovica Terenzi. I'm a lawyer in Italy, and we are working on energy community as well. So we focused our attention last month on the possibility of using crowdfunding for funding cooperative on energy communities. So my question is for Ruslan and Stanislas. Have you ever noticed something like that in your experience? Have you ever tried? Thank you.
The short answer is yes. There is three relatively well-known examples. One in Portugal named Copernico. Copernico is a cooperative that is financing PV panels on rooftop of collective buildings. They have built a crowdfunding platform that became then later on GoParity, which is now a financial service of its own. And the members of the cooperative are basically putting a share into the cooperative to then get access to this crowdfunding platform. The second example is an example from Croatia that is financing the, now what became the Sun cooperative that was meant to develop PV projects on rooftops as well in the municipality of Križevci. And the final one is in Greece, and currently it became a financial service that is then investing in multiple cooperatives in Greece as well. To go a little bit more in depth into that, there's a difference though between a crowdfunding platform and the ownership level that exists into a cooperative project. Generally, what cooperatives do is that they recommend that you have a share into the cooperative in order to get access. The important thing, which is contrary to what is thought to be a tangible benefit that people are looking at in terms of joining a cooperative, is the amount of control that you get over the final energy project that you're trying to get to. Crowdfunding here is simply a tool that is allowing for faster access to capital raising to get the project off the ground. That's specifically accurate for debt, for example, where in the Netherlands, many cooperatives have added into their model the fact that you get a share in the cooperative in order to get membership access, but then you are requested by the cooperative to loan an additional amount of money for financial performance, but also to allow for the project to be financed directly through citizen capital.
All right, well, many thanks, Stanislas, as well for this clarification. And I think with this, we can close this final session of today's plenary meeting. Many thanks, Stanislas, Santiago, Amy, Ruslan, for taking the time and sharing your experience and insights with the group.